Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is Carla Carter. I'll be the host slash moderator for the Basics and Foundations class hosted by Meridian Soul School of the Highest Learning. We're going to go ahead and get started with the aims. So, Dr. Eugene Collins, can you read the aims for us or say the aims for us?
Our aims, the primary constitutional objectives of the Institute are as follows. First, to help you find and know Yahweh, our Elohim, as he really is and actually exists. Second, to form a nucleus of universal brotherhood of humanity in Yahshua the Messiah without the distinction of race, nationality, sex, creed, caste, or color. Third, to investigate the unexplained spirit law or so-called laws of nature and powers latent in man. Fourth, to encourage and promote the study of the scriptures compared to religion, psychology, philosophy, modern, practical, and occult science. Fifth, to extirpate current superstition, skepticism, and ignorance. Sixth, to learn, know, and understand the operation of Yahweh's eternal purpose through the dispensation and ages. Seventh, to discern and avoid being deceived by Lucifer, the serpent, the devil, the dragon, or Satan and his demons operating the mystery of iniquity on earth through the dispensation of time. Eight, to earnestly contend for the common salvation and faith which was once delivered unto the sons or children of Yahweh. Ninth, to make known that Yahweh from the beginning ordained that there is no other name given among men whereby man must be saved, save in the name of Yahshua the Messiah. Intent to inherit eternal life now in the kingdom of Yahshua the Messiah with the hope of immortal glorification in the new earth state. Our watchword is peace and our slogan is speak the truth.
All right. Thank you very much. We have prayer by Dr. Vanessa Collins. If you can lead us in prayer, Ms. Vanessa.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Let us bow our hearts and minds for prayer. Our Heavenly Father Yahweh, we are truly grateful that you have afforded us another opportunity to assemble and to learn more of your divine purpose and plan. Father, as we are assembled, we ask that you open up our hearts, our eyes, and our ears so that we may receive and understand those things that you have prepared for us. Yahweh, Father, lead and guide us on a righteous path so that we can honor, serve, and obey you. These and all blessings I ask in your Son's name, Yahshua the Messiah. Let us all say, Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All right. The scripture lesson will be read by Dr. Kim Davidson. And the scripture lesson is Exodus, the 34th chapter.
Good evening. I'll be reading from the Holy Name Bible containing the Holy Name version of the Old and New Testaments, critically compared with ancient authorities in various manuscripts, revised by A.B. Trainer of the Scripture Research Association. Exodus, the 34th chapter. And Yahweh said unto Moses, hew thee 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and I will write upon these tables the words that were in the first tables which thou breakest. And be ready in the morning, and come up in the morning unto Mount Sinai, and present thyself there to me in the top of the mount. And no man shall come up with thee, neither let any man be seen throughout all the mount. Neither let the flocks nor herds feed before that mount. And he hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first. And Moses rose up early in the morning and went up unto Mount Sinai as Yahweh had commanded him, and took in his hand the 2 tables of stone. And Yahweh descended in the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name of Yahweh. And Yahweh passed by before him and proclaimed, Yahweh, Yahweh El, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children unto the 3rd and the 4th generation. And Moses made haste and bowed his head toward the earth and worshiped. And he said, if now I have found grace in thy sight, O Yahweh, let my Elohim, I pray thee, go among us. for it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for thine inheritance. And he said, behold, I make a covenant before all thy people. I will do marvels such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among which thou art shall see the work of Yahweh. For it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee. Observe thou that which I command thee this day. Behold, I drive out before thee the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest. Let it be for a snare in the midst of thee. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. For thou shalt worship no other El. For Yahweh, who is jealous of his name, is a jealous El. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a-whoring after their deities, and do sacrifice unto their deities, and one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. And thou take of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go a-whoring after their deities, and make thy sons go a-whoring after their deities. Thou shalt make thee no molten deities. The feast of unleavened bread shalt thou keep. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread, as I command thee, in the time of the month Abib. For in the month Abib thou camest out from Egypt. All that openeth the matrix is mine, and every firstling among thy cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male, that is male. But the firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb. And if thou redeem him not, then shalt thou break his neck. All the firstborn of thy sons thou shalt redeem, and none shall appear before me empty. 6 days thou shalt work, but on the 7th day thou shalt rest. In plowing time and in harvest shalt thou rest. And thou shalt observe the feast of weeks, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering at the year's end. Thrice in the year shall all your male children appear before Yahweh Elohim, the Elohim of Israel. For I will cast out the nations before thee, and enlarge thy borders. Neither shall any man desire thy land, when thou shalt go up to appear before Yahweh thy Elohim thrice in a year. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, neither shall the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover be left until the morning. The first of the first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring unto the house of Yahweh thy Elohim. Thou shalt not boil a kid in his mother's milk. And Yahweh said unto Moses, write these words, for after the tenor of these words, I have made a covenant with thee and with Israel. And he was there with Yahweh 40 days and 40 nights, and he did neither eat bread nor drink water. And he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments. And it came to pass when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in his hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses knew not that the skin of his face shone while they talked with him. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come nigh him. And Moses called unto them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned unto him. And Moses talked with them. And afterward, all the children of Israel came nigh, and he gave them in commandment all that Yahweh had spoken with him in Mount Sinai. And till Moses had done speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. But when Moses went in before Yahweh to speak with him, he took the veil off until he came out. And he came out and spake unto the children of Israel that which he was commanded. And the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face shone. And Moses put the veil upon his face again until he went in to speak with him. I have read Exodus, the 34th chapter. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Thank you, Kim, for reading that for us. All right, class, good morning. Good evening, sorry about that. So our assignment for today was to read Genesis, the 2nd chapter through the 10th chapter. And then we were going to answer some pop quiz questions and discuss each chapter. So that being said, I want y'all to get ready. I'm just going to call out the questions first. If I see we need to have more order, I'll just start calling everybody by name. Who all read the chapters? Who did not read the chapters? I said it. Everybody read?
I read.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Okay.
Well, I didn't get mine. Didn't do mine.
Okay. You may be able to go off of memory. We'll see. All right.
Okay.
So question number one. First of all, which trip did Moses see Genesis, the 2nd chapter on through? Which trip was this in the mount that he took?
The 3rd.
Right. This is the 3rd trip. Okay. Amber said she read. She's driving. Okay. All right. Good job. Number 2. How long was Moses in the mount on this 3rd trip?
40 days, 40 nights.
40 days and 40 nights. All right. What was Moses' instructions on the 3rd trip? What was he told to do on the 3rd trip?
He was told to bring up 2 tables like unto the first ones that Yahweh had given him.
Yep. What else? What other instructions was he given?
To come alone and by himself.
Come alone and by himself. What else? What else?
He had to hew out the 2 tables of stones and take those up. And let's see. What my notes say?
Yahweh was going to show him his glory and explain to him that he was going to place him in the cleft of a rock.
That's not the instructions. The instructions that he gave before he went up on the 3rd trip over the instructions that we just read in Exodus, the 34th chapter. So hew thee 2 tables of stone like unto the first. I will write upon these tables the words that were in the first tables which thou breakest. And be ready in the morning and come up in the mountain unto Mount Sinai and present thyself there to me in the top of the mount, and no man shall come up with thee. So he had to go alone by himself. But also, neither let any man even be seen throughout all the mount. Neither let any flocks or herds or anything feed before the mount. And so that was important too. I was just important because when Yahshua fulfilled it, nobody was standing around the woman that was caught in adultery. But anyway, all right, cool. And some of these questions aren't going to be in order. So, in the vision that Moses had on the 3rd trip, how long did it take Yahweh to create the heavens and the earth?
It was instant.
It was in the day.
That's Miss Genesis, the 2nd chapter in the 1st verse.
Very good. Yep. In the day that they were created. So he showed them a rerun of the creation, but he found out in this 3rd trip that it didn't take Yahweh 6 or 7 days to create anything. He did it in the day. Very good.
Carter, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Next question. How did Yahweh water the ground before the flood?
A mist came up out the ground.
Very good. A mist came up out of the ground and watered the ground. All right. Where did Yahweh plant the garden?
Eastward in Eden.
All right. Very good. Eastward in Eden. I used to think Eden was the garden, but actually Yahweh planted a garden in Eden, eastward in the garden. Eastward in Eden. So we're in Eden, but the garden was placed eastward in Eden. All right, very good. Let's see. Which two trees were in the midst of the garden?
The tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Very good. The tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil were both in the midst of the garden. All right. What was the commandment that Yahweh gave to Adam?
Be fruitful and multiply.
All right.
Or not
What
to
was
touch
the other
the
commandment?
tree, not to touch the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
That's right. That's right. Very good. Of all the trees you could freely eat, but the one in the midst, don't touch or don't eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Very good. All right. So, what did Adam say in Moses' vision? What did Adam say after the woman was brought unto him?
This is bone of my bone, the flesh of my flesh. She should be called woman because she came from man.
Good. That's correct. What else did he say?
Mother of all living. She should be called Eve.
Out of Eve, yeah.
No, he didn't say that when she was brought to him. He didn't say, she didn't get a name to her afterwards, but this is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. For this, she should be called woman because she was taken out of man. And what else did he say?
Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh.
That's correct. Right. Very good. All right. Cool. Let's see. And then what was the question that Satan asked the woman when he came to her in the 3rd chapter of Genesis? What did he ask her first? What was the first thing he asked her?
Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? That was the question.
Right. That's the question he asked. Has Elohim said, "You shall not eat of every tree of the garden," which was not what Elohim said at all, but that's how he started out the question to start deceiving her. All right, so after he asked her that, anybody except for Sean, me and Sean already talked about this part. What was the lie that Satan told the woman?
She should not
You won't surely die.
No, we didn't.
Elohim know that she will be as gods, or like unto a god.
I'm actually glad you said that. So, the lie part that he told was the fact that she shouldn't die. But now the part that he said, for Elohim knows that in the day that you eat thereof, you should be like him, knowing good and evil. That part was actually true. And the reason why we say that, the reason why we know that was true, let's see. This is it was kind of like a trick question, but let me put some of it. So we'll go to Genesis, the 3rd chapter. In the 5th verse, this is where Satan is saying, for Elohim doth know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil. That's what he told her. Now that part was true. The part that was a lie was right before that, when he said, you shall not surely die, or no death will you die. Because if you go down to the 22nd verse, after they had partaken of the tree, Yahweh said that, and Yahweh said, behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. So that was true. That once they partook of the tree, they would be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. And Yahweh said so after it happened. And so the whole point in all of that is that's how Satan works. It sounds so close to the truth. That's why he said if it were possible, the very elect would be deceived. And so we have to be real careful when we're listening to the gospel and things like that. And we're, it sounds so close to the truth because parts of it is true, the other parts not. But we're not taking bits and pieces. If part of it is wrong, you throw the whole thing out. We want the whole truth, nothing but the truth. But that was it. No death will you die was the last part. And then, of course, he told the truth and he said the other part. All right. And then next question. What was the reason or what caused her to partake of the tree? What caused her to disobey Yahweh anyway?
Because Satan told her that she would be as Elohim, knowing good and evil.
But it was something in her, though, that caused her to go ahead and listen to him.
He said that the tree was good to be desired. Something like that.
Right.
She desired wisdom.
Thought it was the tree was good for food.
For me.
That it was pleasant to the eyes and a tree to be desired to make one wise.
Right, exactly. So what got her caught up, it wasn't the fact that Satan said it. It was what was in her anyway. It said when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, this is something that she's looking out of her, naturally so, and that it was pleasant to the eyes. That's what got her caught up, looking out of the sight of her eyes, and the tree to be desired to make one wise. She took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her his. So she actually was following after her own desire, as opposed to following after the instructions of Yahweh, because she clearly knew what Yahweh had said, and she repeated it. But because her desire was stronger, that's what she went after. Okay, cool. Very good. So after Adam and Eve partook of the fruit, what happened to them? Like what happened? What effect did it have on them?
They became conscious of themselves, like they knew they were naked. In the 7th verse, it says, the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made aprons.
So when they said that both their eyes were open, are they talking about their physical eyes? Were they walking around with their eyes closed the whole time?
No, that's referring to their consciousness.
Okay,
They became carnal minded.
Right, they became carnal minded. So now their eyes are opened, or they're aware of the flesh or the physical now, the carnal things. They became carnally minded and condemned in their conscience. But prior to that, when we read in the 2nd chapter of Genesis, it says at the very last verse, they were both naked and they were not ashamed at all. But now, after they're partaking of this tree, the eyes of them both were naked and open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons to try to cover themselves up. All right, very good. Next question. Let's see. Now, did Satan trick Adam too? Did he deceive Adam as well?
No.
Adam willfully took of it.
He couldn't
His
deceive
wife
God.
may have a way back in.
So did his wife deceive him then?
No.
He was not deceived.
He willingly partake of that fruit.
Right. And there's a scripture that says Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived. So Adam was not deceived at all. Adam is a type of
Yahweh Elohim looking at him. Yeah.
Right. Adam knew what he had done, and he willingly died for his bride. That's right. All right, very good. Let's see. So let me ask you this then. Why did Adam hide himself after the transgression?
This is why I wanted to come home
Was
early.
it that
Why
he
he
heard
be-
Yahweh
No.
first?
Say it again.
Oh,
What was the
He was
question?
condemned in his mind.
Yeah, he was condemned in his mind. The question was, why did Adam hide himself after the transgression?
Was it that he heard Yahweh's voice in the garden and he became afraid?
He was afraid and ashamed. But yeah, he was afraid. That's why he hid himself. Very good. I think that's in the 4th chapter, maybe 3rd. No, at the end of the 3rd chapter. All right, and then so what was Adam's punishment?
It would work. What is it, about a sweat of his brow?
Kill the
And
soul. Kill the
yeah.
soul.
Mm-hmm.
And his desire to his wife.
And cast out of the garden.
Right. So when Yahweh came to Adam and asked him, had he partaken of the tree that he told him not to partake of, what did Adam do? Did he own up to it?
The woman that you gave me.
He started pointing the finger at everybody else. It's everybody else's fault but his. So whenever we get to doing all that, we get to check ourselves.
Yeah.
And see where I head at.
Dr. Kinley referred to it as passing the buck.
The woman you gave me, she brought him to me and I did eat. And you asked Eve, what has she done? Well, the serpent beguiled me and I did eat. So, and I'm like, that's what the carnal mind does.
Ain't got nobody to look at.
Yahweh didn't ask. He didn't ask the serpent one question. He didn't ask Satan nothing. He said, because thou hast done this. You know, all that stuff you told him. But so, because that's one of the next questions. So Adam, he cursed the ground for Adam's sake. Instead of cursing Adam, he cursed the ground for Adam's sake and said that he would have to, in labor, he would have to till the soil by the sweat of his brow and things like that, so forth and so on. And Eve's punishment was what?
Yeah. Childbearing. It says that
What about
in pain thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband.
Right, exactly. So her punishment was that she would have pain in childbearing. Let's see.
And also it states that Yahweh said he would put enmity between thee and the woman, the Satan and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, and he shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel.
Yep. So that was Satan. That's what he told to Satan. So he told Eve.
Yes, okay.
Yahweh only said in servant. Yep, he told, I will greatly multiply thy pain and thy conception. In pain thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. What happened to that, y'all? All these women.
That used to be in the vows when you get married. It used to say to you say, how did it go? You promise to love, honor, and obey. Yeah. And somewhere along the line, they kind of like snatched out the obey.
Yeah, because they realized what they was marrying. I feel them. But all right, what did he tell Satan?
Carla, can I and you might just say, no, we ain't going that route right now. But when I was reading that part right there, that very part where Yahweh was talking to Satan or to the serpent, and he said that he would put enmity between Satan and the woman, but the man, he cursed the ground. And so I was looking at today how that the woman was talking about the creation. And so the enmity, even now when you look at it, you know, and just listen to you guys talk about when you ask the question, what happened, you know, then you look at that we're in now a spirit age or the age of grace. So the enmity is still though between Satan and this creation, because you're looking at Adam, he was playing the role of the Messiah, or that was Yahweh. So Satan really was no match for Yahweh. And Adam willfully died or partook of that for his bride, just like the Messiah willfully died for us so that we can have life. So even back here, Yahweh is showing that the enmity was between the woman and Satan, or the creation and Satan.
Yep. So if you look at the way Yahweh did it, he asked Adam first, he blamed the woman. He asked the woman, she blamed Satan. And he said to Satan, didn't ask him anything, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And the dust is what? What does the dust represent? The flesh. The man was created from the dust of the ground. So Satan, that's all he has control over. That's all he has power over. He even told y'all, y'all even told him about Job, because all he has don't touch his life. Skin for skin, but don't touch his life, because he has no power over that part. And then the punishment went down to the woman. He told her, you know, about childbearing, and then it went down to Adam, so forth and so on. So after he gave out the punishment, what else happened to the ground after it was cursed?
It brought forth thorns and thistles, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep. It brought forth thorns and thistles. And so then, if you look at the thorns and thistles represent the sin. After the transgression, the thorns and thistles came forth. So after the sin was committed, that's when the thorns and thistles came forth. And so when Abraham had to offer up Isaac, and that ram was caught in the thicket by his horns, or those thistles or those thorns, that was like the sins of the world was on that ram's head. And a ram is a male lamb, which is likened to the Messiah. So when the Messiah was crucified, he had to have the crown of thorns on his head, because that represents the sins. He was carrying or bearing the sins of the world on his head. Perfect. Okay, so then the next, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying hallelujah. I never heard that before, and it makes so much sense. Thank you.
Yes.
Absolutely. So next question. Well, not really a question. So then after this happened, this is when the man called his wife's name Eve. Now, if you note, before the transgression, it said that he called their name Adam. After the woman was brought out of the man, her name was still Adam. She wasn't given a name until after she had fallen, after the transgression. And it's like we're called by the same name. So after we're raised, then we all get our name back. And so if we stop here and look at, let's see, Revelation, the 12th chapter, we'll see how John and Moses were looking at the same thing. Revelation 12th chapter, and we're going to go into some things with these chapters and be done. All right, so the first verse says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars." Now, he's looking at Eve in Adam. This is the woman clothed in the sun. This is the woman already in the sun, in the man. And it said, and she being she being with child, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. So now Yahweh said that she had to be in pain to be delivered. So now he's looking at after the transgression. This is her being with child, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And he told Satan that he would put enmity or war between her seed and his seed. And the very first child that she had was Cain. So the next verse says, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his head. His tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. As soon as Cain came forth, Satan took him. And she brought forth a man child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto Elohim and to his throne. Now that's Abel now. He's looking at Abel now. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she would be da-da-da-da. So John is looking at the same thing Moses is looking at. And so we're going to keep all this in mind. So we're going to keep reading. So when we've already kind of went through the second chapter without actually reading it. And so, and pretty much the third chapter as well. We already went through the third chapter. So let's read the fourth chapter and kind of see what John is looking at and see if Moses and John are looking at the same thing. So who wants to read the fourth chapter for me? Well, no, wait. Before we get to the fourth chapter, we didn't get finished with the third. So after all that, and he called her name Eve and things like that. Let's see. Y'all would make them coats of skin. And then, so that's when Yahweh said, the man has become like as one of us, knowing good and evil, unless he take his hand and touch the tree. What was the issue with him touching the tree of life? Why did Yahweh not want him to touch the tree of life? Because if that was the case, before the transgression, he didn't say anything was wrong with him touching the tree of life before the transgression. The only thing he told him not to partake of was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So now, what is the problem with him taking hold of the tree of life now? Why is Yahweh saying it's a problem if he touches the tree of life? He got to go. What's the problem?
The 22nd verse, and Yahweh said to him that he had become as one of us, and if he put forth his hand and touched the tree of life, then he would live forever.
Mm-hmm. But there was no problem with him touching the tree of life before the transgression. It wasn't a problem. So why now?
Because at that point, before the transgression, then he did not know good and evil, so it was not an issue because he was already Yahweh. He had not partaken, or he had not come down into that state of knowing what good and evil was. So there was no need for, well, in my little finite mind, to me, it was like he was already Yahweh. He just didn't know it. But then after the disobedience, or after the fall, then he knew, he had a knowledge of what good and evil was, because at one point they didn't even know that they were naked until after the transgression.
I'm going to play the advocate. So what you said was, go ahead.
I was also going to add, but also what he did was disobey the commandment that he was given. And so he would have lived forever in that condemned state of disobedience. Mm-hmm. In the garden, in heaven. He can't have that. He couldn't stay in that state because the Garden of Eden is representing heaven. Mm-hmm. So he couldn't stay in that state. With him being disobedient, and then with no reconciliation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can I give an answer? Yeah. It's like this. He couldn't put forth his hand See, it was all about the love of his bride. And his bride had to go through a regeneration, which happened at Pentecost. So he's not going to be able to put forth his hand and touch of the tree of life until Pentecost happens, which enables them to put forth their hand. That's my answer that I see.
Okay. Now, I'm going to break down some of the things that y'all said. Now, first, Vanessa, you were saying,
And then I did them candy yams. What you need tea for, baby?
which time I candy yams out loud later.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want some doggone candy yams. Shoot. All right, so, so the comment was made that he was already like Yahweh. He was already Yahweh. He just didn't know it. So it was no problem him taking over the tree at that point. But I can debunk that with the scripture because he didn't become as Elohim until he partook of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So says Yahweh. The man has become like us, knowing good and evil. Now let's he partake of the tree and live forever. Da 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 da. So I could debunk that part, but I know what you're saying when you said that. Now, what was the issue? Well, what it was before the transgression, Adam was one with Yahweh, Elohim at the time. He was being fed in his conscience, and he walked with Yahweh, Elohim daily, being fed in his conscience until the fall, because it's only one that could bring it down, and that's Yahweh, Elohim himself, and not the same one that brought it back. And so that was him in Adam, but he had to actually, the only way he could actually die for his bride was to partake of the tree. Now, once that happened, it was not in the purpose of Yahweh for them to live in the state of condemnation forever. Yahshua, the lamb, was already slain before the foundation of the world anyway. And so Yahweh had purpose for Adam to partake of it. Now, let me put this on your mind. Yahweh said absolutely nothing about them not partaking of the tree of life. The only tree that they could of all the trees in the garden, you can freely eat, including the tree of life. But the one in the midst, that one you can't touch or eat of it. In the day that you eat thereof, you shall surely die or die to death. Not if, but when. In the day that because he knew they were going to do it. Now let me put this on your mind. So the tree of life evidently was not a desirous tree. It wasn't a good-looking tree. How do I know that? Because when the Messiah came in, he was calmly looking. He didn't look good when he came in. And he is the tree of life. And so that's why he had no problem with being worried about them partaking of the tree of life in the beginning anyway, but it wasn't an issue until after the transgression because it was not purpose for them to be in that state and condition forever. And so then he said that he was going to actually, kick them out of the garden. Where did Yahweh send Adam?
East of the garden.
He was placed eastward in the garden already. Where did he send him after the transgression?
I know this. I know this.
It's right here. So the 22nd verse says, and Yahweh Elohim said, behold, the man has become as one of us to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever, colon. Therefore, because of this, because he didn't want him to partake of the tree of life, Yahweh Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden, to till the ground from whence he was taken. Adam had to go back to the place where he was actually created. Because remember, he was not created in the garden. He was created outside of the garden and placed eastward in the garden. Just like Yahshua was not created here on earth, but he was placed here, and you saw that star on the east when he came in, and he came in through the loins of the Virgin Mary. So all of it has to line up. So he has to go back to where he was taken from and till the ground there. in Eden, but not in the Garden of Eden. Remember, the garden was planted eastward in Eden, but Eden itself was a whole place, and Adam had to get kicked out of the Garden of Eden and sent back to the place where he was actually formed of the dust of the ground and tilled the ground there. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubim, Michael, and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. All right, so Michael's garden away. Nobody could partake of the tree of life at all. Perfect, cool. So let's read the 4th chapter and break that one down. Ooh, we got a lot of moving to do. All right, who wants to read the 4th chapter for me?
I got you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Genesis 4th chapter. And the man knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived, and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man, even Yahweh. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a herder of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And it came to pass in the end of the days that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahweh. And Abel.
Now, why is he bringing up an offering? Now, remember, we just read in the 34th chapter of Exodus, I think it was, where Yahweh talks about how he will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the 3rd, 4th generation, right? And so we know that the wages of sin is death. And instead of Yahweh actually killing the man for sinning against him, then he's able to offer up an innocent animal instead of the life of the man. So they were having to offer up sacrifices from that point forward. If we keep reading, you'll see how Noah and them had to offer up sacrifices. Abraham was offering up sacrifices. They were continually offering up sacrifices because they had a condemned conscience from the fall of Adam. This was before Yahweh had given the laws to Israel and those carnal commandments to Israel to offer up sacrifices. This was before then. So they were having to offer up sacrifices because of the iniquity of their father. And so after the end of days, it came to pass that Cain brought up the first fruits of the ground and offered unto Yahweh, and Abel brought, it don't even say first fruit, do it? It say brought of the fruit of the ground. And Abel brought the firsting of his flock and of the fat thereof. Okay, read the 4th verse one more time for me.
And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of their fat. And Yahweh had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and to his offering he had no respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And Yahweh said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen?
Pause for just a second. Now, keep in mind what John saw in Revelations, how that Satan was waiting to devour her child as soon as he was born, right? And then it said she brought forth a man child that was to rule with the iron, but he was caught up unto Yahweh. That's Abel. Now, so the one that was supposed to rule was Abel. So now we're fixing to find out what the argument that Cain and Abel had. And Yahweh is going to let us know too what the argument was. But when you put John and Moses' vision together, you can see clearly what the argument was. Satan has always wanted to be the one that was on top. It's always about power with him. So Yahweh said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen? 7th verse.
If thou doest well, thou shalt be exalted. And if thou doest not well, sin offering lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him.
So now he's telling, if you were to do well, then you could rule over him then. That's why he was pissed off, because Adam was the king of the earth. When Yahweh made the man, he said he gave the man dominion over all of the creatures, over everything. So Adam was the king. And so the king, after the king died, you have to have an heir who was going to rule after the king, and it would be one of his sons. And so Abel was supposed to rule. That's why Cain was pissed off about it. And Yahweh said, if you do well, then you should rule over him. But if you don't do well, then sin lies at the door for you. That's what the whole argument was about. It was not about the sacrifice, so to speak. Yahweh didn't accept his. The reason why he was pissed off that Yahweh didn't accept his sacrifice, because that meant that Abel was going to be the ruler over him instead of him ruling over Abel. And that's why he killed his brother Abel. That's what John saw on the Isle of Patmos in the 12th chapter of Revelation. She had a man child that was to rule with iron. He was caught up with Yahweh. So after Abel was killed, Yahweh said, your brother's blood, I hear your brother's blood is crying unto me from the ground. Abel was caught up with Yahweh. That's what John saw. Does that make sense to anybody, or doesn't it explain it again? Does that make sense?
It made sense, but so it was basically, it was jealousy also, though. It was jealousy that he was ruling over him. But it was because of what he sacrificed that caused him to rule over him.
It was because, so the reason why Yahweh accepted Abel's offering instead of Cain's, because Abel offered up blood. Without the shedding of blood, there can be no remission of sin. Because the reason they had to offer the sacrifices in the first place was because of the sin of Adam. That's why Yahweh said in the 7th verse, if not, then sin offering lies at the door. Because they had to offer these sin offerings because of the fall of Adam. And his was not accepted. And so because his was not accepted, the same thing with Jacob and Esau. Jacob I love, Esau have I hated. Yeah, Jacob was given a blessing. And even though Esau sought it carefully with tears, there was nothing Jacob could do, Israel could do to change what the blessing that he gave, because the blessing didn't come from Israel, it came from Yahweh. It was because, and Yahweh told Rebekah before, when she was pregnant, that the elder shall serve the younger. The younger will rule over the elder, is what Rebekah was told about Jacob and Esau. That's what the whole fight was about with them too. It's gonna play the same thing down all the way down. That's why Satan was pissed off in heaven. He felt like because he was the overcovering cherub, they're supposed to worship him instead of worshiping Yahshua. And so that's what the whole fight has been. Satan is not changing. The mystery, these two mysteries have to come all the way down to the law and all through the age of dispensation. It cannot change. It's always about power. If you look at what strife means, if you look at what these different words mean, it's always about fighting about power, fighting for dominance. That's what Satan said, I will be like the Most High, holding himself that he's the mighty one, because he wants somebody to follow him and worship him instead of worshiping Yahshua. And so that's what it was about. So Cain was mad that, Abel was accepted and he was going to rule with the iron, and Cain got mad about it. And that was the whole thing that caused the issue with Cain and Abel. That's what the fight was about. Not necessarily the sacrifice per se, but because his sacrifice wasn't accepted, he was not going to be able to rule like he wanted to. And he killed it with his own. 8 verse says it. And Cain talked with Abel, his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him. All right, with Abel's rod, shepherd's rod. All right, 9th verse.
And Yahweh said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood cries unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the ground, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it should not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A wanderer shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto Yahweh, my iniquity is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the ground, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. And Yahweh said unto him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Yahweh set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of Yahweh and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begat Mehujael, and Mehujael begat Methuselah, and Methuselah begat Lamech. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. And Ada bare Jabal. He was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in copper and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man for wounding me, and a young man for bruising me. If Cain should be avenged 7-fold, truly Lamech 70 and 7-fold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For Elohim, said she, hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enosh. Then began men to call themselves by the name of Yahweh.
All right, Paul. So thank you very much. All right, so we'll scroll back up a little bit. So with Cain, Yahweh said that he would be a till of the ground and is not going to bring forth a strength. He should be a vagabond or a wanderer in the earth. Now remember, John saw that Satan was there to devour her firstborn child as soon as he was born. That was Satan in Cain. That's why Yahweh marked him with the mark, which was a 666. If you read Job, the first chapter, it even talks about the sons of Elohim came together and Satan came also. And he asked Satan, from whence cometh thou? He said, from going to and fro and up and down in the earth. That's all he could do. He had to wander the earth forever. The same one that was in Cain is the same one that came forth and presented himself with in front of Yahweh with the sons of Elohim. And he said, whoever finds Cain and kill him, Yahweh would 7 times or whatever, that kind of stuff. Now, the question came up about Cain's wife. They said Cain knew his wife, and the question came up like, well, where did his wife come from? Like, were there other people? Like, where did the wife come from? Now, Yahweh told Adam what? To be fruitful and multiply, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So be fruitful and multiply. Now, most of the time, let me ask y'all this: how many children did Jacob have? Or Israel? How many children did Israel have?
A bunch of them.
13. 13.
12.
Shut up. Me and Sean had this conversation already, so he's not allowed to talk. How many did Israel have, or Jacob have?
12.
12.
It said 12,
Right.
but then there was also Ishmael, but Ishmael wasn't going to be counted.
No, Ishmael was his brother.
Oh,
No, Ishmael was
right.
his uncle.
Jacob and
Ishmael was his
Esau.
uncle. No. Ishmael was his uncle. Right. So he had 12 sons, but we always forget about his daughter Dinah. Remember, he had Dinah too.
I was about to say that, but I thought I was wrong.
No, so he also had Dinah too. So remember, Leah had 6 boys and Dinah. Rachel had 2, Benjamin and Joseph, and then Leah's handmaid had 2, and Rachel's handmaid had 2. So he had 12 sons. He had 12 sons and 1 daughter named Dinah. You don't hear much about the daughters at all, but they do have a significant part to play as well. You'll hear about some of them here and there. Now, if we go to the next chapter, it says Adam had sons and daughters. Now, Adam lived to be 930 years old.
Mhm.
So they did not stop having children after they had Cain and Abel. They were still having children, a whole bunch of them. Now it's just after Cain was killed, Abel was killed, then they had Seth too, and then Eve said what she said, so forth and so on, but they had sons and daughters. So Cain actually married his sister. There was nowhere else for her to come from. And we also go to Acts the 17th chapter and 24th verse, starting there, where it says, Yahweh, who made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is ruler of heaven and earth, well, as not in temples made with hands, as though he needed anything, and by one man made all nations of men. So everybody that was born came from Adam at that time. And then they started having children and children, whatever. So if there was a wife to be had by Cain or Abel, it had to be their sister, because that's where they came from. So Adam and Eve had to be fruitful and multiply. Cool. Next chapter, because we got some moving to do. All right.
Can I just make one little comment?
Absolutely, please.
I didn't realize with Cain, like from the very beginning when Yahweh asked him, where's thy brother? And he lied right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like that Satan, that mystery of iniquity, like lying again, just like he did in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
I never like saw that, catch that. He was like, I don't know where my brother is. He lied right then and there. So you can tell that spirit just devoured Cain and just jumped right on in him, and he just lied right off, just willingly lied. So I just wanted to point that out. I never really paid attention to that.
Said he was a liar and the father of lies.
That's right, and he was a murderer from the beginning. Yep. And then when we traced him all the way down, even after the flood, you'll see the same traits too. But we're not doing that tonight. We're just going to go through the 10 chapters. So,
can I read right quickly, Dr. Carter, a passage out of the Elohim that relates to what we're talking about with Cain and Abel? It's in the Elohim book. Okay, it's in the Elohim book, volume 4, page 16, and it's entitled The Evil Angelic Spirit, or Satan Incarnated in Man. Plate number 16 illustrates Cain, the first murderer, whom Yahweh Elohim placed a mark upon establishing an event in the visible earth plane. It was the purpose of Yahweh to place a mark on Cain to reveal the mystery of iniquity and the mark of the beast, 666, operating through the ages and will continue to the end of time when he shall be destroyed. The above illustration will reveal the contrast between the mystery of Yahweh and the mystery of iniquity as compared to the threefold pattern of the tabernacle. And I'm going to drop down to the 3rd verse. Satan was not only the instigator of Abel's murder, he was the author of Cain's religion, spoken of by Jude as the way of Cain. Jude 11, 1, Jude 11, 1 John 3 and 12. Therefore, Satan, the wicked angelic spirit, incarnated himself in a man. Cain, whom Yahweh Elohim marked in his forehead and in his hands, Genesis 4 and 15, with the satanic number 666, because of his jealousy and depraved mind. Cain slew his brother Abel with his hand. This was the first physical murder referred to by Yahshua in John 8 and 44, which was caused by Satan, or the beast incarnated in the man. The disposition of and life of Cain the disposition and the life of Cain as in the murder of his brother Abel, shown in plate 16E, was as the sacrifices on the altar in the outer court, plate 1E, and the death of Adam, plate 15E.
Mm-hmm. Very good. That does go right along with what we're talking about. Perfect. And of course, Jude and 1 John was written by John on the Isle of Patmos too. So he was looking at the same thing that Moses saw in that vision. So very good. Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Who wants to read the 5th chapter of Genesis for me?
I'll read it.
Okay.
Genesis 5, the 5th chapter. This is the book of the generations of Adam in the day that Elohim created man. In the likeness of Elohim made he him, male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam, in the day when they were created. And Adam lived 130 years, and begat a son in his own likeness after his image, and called his name Seth. And the days of Adam after he had gotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. And Seth lived 105 years, and begot Enosh. I picked this scripture to read with all these things. I'm sorry, y'all. And Seth lived after he begot Enosh 807 years, and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. And Enosh lived 90 years, and begot Canaan. And Enosh lived after he begot Canaan 800 years, and 815 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. And Canaan lived 70 years, and begat Mahalalel. And Canaan lived after he had begot Mahalalel 840 years, and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. And Mahalalel lived 65 years, and begot Jared. And Mahalalel lived after he begot Jared 830 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. And Jared lived 162 years, and he begot Enoch. And Jared lived after he begot Enoch 800 years, and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. And Enoch lived 65 years, and begot Methuselah. And Enoch walked with Elohim, and he begot Methuselah 300 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with Elohim, and he was not, for Elohim took him. And Methuselah lived 187 years, and begot Lamech. And Methuselah lived after he begot Lamech 782 years, and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. And Lamech lived 182 years, and begat a son. And he called his name Noah, saying, This same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which Yahweh hath cursed. And Lamech lived after he begot Noah 595 years, and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Hello? Oh.
I'm sorry, I was muted out. I was talking. So thank you for reading that. So if you look at all the ones that he mentioned, it says for all of them, and he begot sons and daughters. He begot sons and daughters. You don't hear anything about the sons and daughters or what their names were, but they did have sons and daughters. So when you roll it up to Adam, it talks about Adam lived 130 years and begot a son. So Adam, after the fall of Adam, 130 years passed before he had Seth. Now he had Cain and Abel before then. And so, of course, before he did that, and there's a colon there too. And it said, and the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years. And he begat sons and daughters. So Adam had sons and daughters too, before and after Seth, but they're just mentioning the ones that played significant roles in Yahweh's purpose as far as that goes. And so Adam lived 930 years after the transgression, and Yahweh said that he would die in the day that he eat thereof. So he died in his conscience instantly. And it looked like he lived 930 years, so he didn't die that same day physically, but he actually did, because Yahweh said 1,000 years is as one day, and one day 1,000 years. And so Adam lived 930 years, which is 70 years short of the 1,000 years, which is the one day. So he actually did die in that day of those 1,000 years. No man lived past the whole day. Methuselah was the oldest man to ever live, and he was 969 years old. And so forth and so on. So Seth, through the lineage of Seth, you have Noah being born. And so Noah was born, it said, at Noah was 500 years old, and he begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now we know that he could not have all three of them in that same 1 year.
Right.
But it's just kind of giving you the time frame of when Noah had, Shem, Ham, and Japheth or whatever, and he was 500 years old. It's going to go on into where Yahweh told him that he was going to, cause a flood and things like that. So Noah was 500 years old, colon, and Noah begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Who was the oldest brother? I don't remember.
Is it Shem?
Yeah. Mm-mm.
Thought it was Jason.
Japheth was the oldest.
Japheth.
Japheth was the oldest, and then Ham was the youngest. So of course Shem is the middle child. So Shem, Ham, and Japheth, or Japheth, Shem, and Ham. So Noah got Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Next chapter, since we're running out of time, let's go ahead and read the 6th chapter real quick. Anybody want to go through the 6th chapter for me? Read that for us.
Let me do it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And Yahweh said, my spirit shall not always thrive with man, for he is but flesh. Let his days be 120 years. There were Nephilim in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of Elohim came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown.
Pause. Now, what does that mean? Who are the sons of Elohim and who are the daughters of men? What in the world is that talking about? Now, the lineage of Seth were the sons of Elohim. Because he had it in his own likeness, his own image, right? And so then, remember when Eve had Cain, she said, "I've gotten me a man." And so the daughters of men were the ones that came forth from Cain. All the ones that came forth from Cain were the daughters of men. So you had the sons of Elohim going into the daughters of men, and they had those men of renown, mighty men, which were of old, men of renown, which those talking about those satanic spirits. Then another thing too, remember it said at the age of 500 years old, it said Noah begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Let man's years be 120. Let man days be 120 years. So when Yahweh said this, how old was Noah when Yahweh said this?
Can you say that again, please?
How old was Noah when Yahweh said, and Yahweh said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years.
And he would be like 580?
480.
I mean, 400, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, 480.
400. And how do we know that? Because Noah was 600 years old when the flood actually came. So if he had to preach 120 years until the flood came, then you subtract 120 years from the age of, that Noah was when the flood came. So he was 480 years old when this flood came. And I remember somebody was saying that Yahweh said that before Shem, Ham, and Japheth were born. But anyway, fourth verse. Go ahead, Vanessa. Sorry.
There were Nephilim in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of Elohim came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. And Yahweh saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented Yahweh that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And Yahweh said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the birds of the heavens, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and upright in his generations, and Noah walked with Elohim. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before Elohim, and the earth was filled with violence. And Elohim looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And Elohim said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and thou shalt cover it with pitch within and without. And this is how thou shalt make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A skylight shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof, with lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. And behold, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under the heavens, and everything that is in the earth shall perish. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. Of birds according to kind, and of cattle according to kind, of every creeping thing of the earth according to kind. 2 of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah, according to all that Elohim commanded him, so did he.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. For the sake of time, we just hit a couple of highlights. We saw that the door was put in the side, but did y'all touch that where it said that, let's see, where is it at? About the animals, it said they shall come to thee. Just pass it.
Because it's that part about the animals.
Oh, here it is.
About
18.
Okay.
18. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark. No, that's not it.
I think you want the 19.
Is it 19? Yep. I think so. Yep. And every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shall thou bring into the ark to keep them alive with thee. That's no. It says
20th.
20th verse. Yes. of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind, 2 of every sort shall come unto thee. He didn't have to go beat no bushes. Yahweh told him that those animals were going to come to him. So all those that Yahweh had chose of the animals to save, those are the ones that the Spirit of Yahweh in them walked into the ark on their own. They came to him. He didn't have to go beat no bushes and build an ark and preach the gospel. That's not what he had to do. He was supposed to preach and warn the people and build the ark. And Yahweh did the rest. So then he had to get food, got 3 stories, and so forth and so on. So next chapter, for the sake of time, let's go ahead and read the 7th chapter of Genesis. Let's see, I'll read that one. And Yahweh said unto Noah, come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast that thou shalt take to thee by 7, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and his female. Oh, that's why it was 7. Wow, okay. Okay. Fowls also of the air by 7, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. Yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according unto all that Yahweh commanded him. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. And Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Of clean beasts, and of beasts that are not clean, and of fowls, and of everything that creepeth upon the earth. There went in 2 and 2 unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as Elohim had commanded Noah. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. They were in the ark for 7 days before the flood came. They didn't wait to the last minute. They didn't wait to the day before or the night before or the hour before they went in. They were in there for 7 days before a drop of rain hit. You know, the people looking at them crazy and mocking them. Now, 11th verse. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. So May 17th is when the flood came. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Now it says, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up. So that's the fountains above and from beneath. And it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. In the self-same day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them into the ark. They and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went unto Noah into the ark 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. And they that went in male and female of all flesh, as Elohim had commanded him. And Yahweh shut him in, and the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased, and bare up the ark, and it was lifted up above the earth. And the waters prevailed, and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went up on the face of the waters. It had to go up on the face of the waters because the Spirit of Elohim moved across the face of the waters. And that's what the ark represented. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle and of beasts, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man. All in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land, died. And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping things, and the fowls of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth, and Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. And so after the flood, then it said the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. All right. 8th chapter. We got 3 more to go. Who wants to read the 8th chapter for me? Excuse me.
I can read it.
Okay.
And Elohim remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And Elohim made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. The fountains also of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens were stopped, and the rain from the heaven was restrained, and the waters receded from off the earth continually. And after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated, and the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month upon Mount Ararat. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made, and he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from off the earth. He waited 7 days, and he sent forth a dove from him, to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot, and she returned unto him into the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put his hand and took her and pulled her in unto him into the ark. And he waited yet other 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came in to him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. And he waited yet other 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the 1st month, the 1st day of the month, the waters were dried up from off the earth, and Noah removed the coverings of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the 2nd month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, was the earth dry. And Elohim spake unto Noah, saying, Come out of the ark, thou and thy wife, and thy sons, and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of birds and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth, according to kind, went forth out of the ark. And Noah built an altar unto Yahweh, and took of every clean beast, and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And Yahweh smelled the pleasant savor, and Yahweh said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake. For the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. I read the 8th chapter of Genesis.
Very good. Thank you. All right, so May 17th is when the flood came, and then it said the 7th month, which was, you got the 40 days that it rained, and you got 150 days too, and then of course that took you on over into the 7th month, and then you have to, so all the time that passed. The very first thing that was cast out of the ark was the raven. Why is that?
Is the predator.
It was depicting Satan being cast out of heaven.
Right, exactly. Now, it's because I think Kim did a report on this a long time ago. When you look at the characteristics of a raven, it is identical to Satan. It even mimics other animals. It can it has something, and so it's dark. It's black. It's dark. You know what I mean? Which depicts Satan or evil. And the raven never did come back to the ark. It just was going to and fro and up and down, flying around, because it didn't have anywhere to rest its feet. But it didn't go back to the ark. Satan had no place in heaven anymore, so he could not return back to heaven, just like the raven could not return back to the ark. And so then he sent the dove out, and the dove could not find any rest for the sole of her feet. And so she came back. He sent her out again, and she brought back the branch to show forth that the waters had abated. And he sent her out again, and she didn't come back the third time. And so those are significant principles too. And then, now, if the thought of intent of man's heart was evil continuing, that's why Yahweh flooded the earth. Now, after everybody's dead and they're coming about the ark, why is Yahweh saying still that the heart and intent of man is evil from his youth? I thought all the evil men were already dead now. We started over. Why is he saying that?
Still carnal.
The carnal?
The condemnation he inherited from his Adam.
But what
Satan
else though?
walking on this earth plane. Satan didn't have bodies now to incarnate.
That's right. Right. Because you cannot drown a satanic spirit in water, just like you can't water baptize somebody and get rid of Satan. It doesn't work like that. He baptized everybody and Satan still. And so if you look at the pattern, right, and because Yahweh said that he would put the enmity between the man, the woman and her seed, so forth and so on, right? And so you have Noah being the father, you have Japheth, Shem, and Ham. You have three sons. Ham is the third part of Japheth, Shem, and Ham. He's the third part. And so when you trace the lineage of Ham, all of those that came forth from Ham, you had the Canaanites, the Hivites, you had the Philistines, you had the Sodom and Gomorrah, all those nations in Canaan land. You even had all the way down to the Egyptians. All of those came forth from Ham. Every last Sodom and Gomorrah, all of those Nimrod, all of those that came forth from Ham were of the satanic spirit, showing forth that was the third part that was cast out. And so Ham being the third part, Satan jumped in every last one of his children that he had. All those satanic spirits that was drowned up out of them bodies was waiting. And as soon as they jumped right in them, and Yahweh showed forth that mystery going all the way through the lineage of Ham. Because remember when, I'm going to read it in a minute, I think, when Ham looked upon his father's nakedness, and when Noah woke up and saw what his younger son had done, he said, "Cursed be Canaan." He didn't say cursed be Ham. He said, "Cursed be Canaan," because Yahweh said, what we read in the 34th chapter of Exodus, that Yahweh will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation. If you trace the lineage of Ham, you even see that Nineveh came forth from the lineage of Ham. And that's what Jonah was sent forth, those evil people in Nineveh, to preach unto them. And so all of the lineage of Ham represents that third part that was cast out to the earth, and Ham being a third part of those brothers and things like that. So that's why Yahweh said the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth, neither will I again smite anymore every living thing as I have done. I won't kill everybody at one time no more, so forth and so on. And then of course he calls the both to come in the sky in the next chapter, I believe it is. All right, so 9th chapter, I'll read real quick because we only got 20 minutes. And Elohim blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fish of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered." Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Even as the green herb have I given you all things. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall you not eat. Excuse me. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it. And at the hand of man, at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of Elohim made he man. And you, be ye fruitful, and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. And Elohim spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and every living creature, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowls, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And Elohim said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and thee, of me and the earth. And it shall come to pass, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. So that's why after it rains, you always see a rainbow in the sky after it rains. That's Yahweh's covenant that he promised unto man and to everybody on the earth, that he would not destroy the world by flood, by water. 16th verse, and the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between Yahweh and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And Elohim said unto Noah, This is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. And Noah began to be an husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. A husbandman is somebody that dresses a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and was drunken. And he was uncovered within his tent. He was naked, bucky naked. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backwards and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward. And they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be Yahweh Elohim of Shem, which comes forth out of the Jews. And Canaan shall be his servant. Now, he didn't say Yahweh Elohim of Shem this time because he didn't even know Yahweh's name. But this is Moses' vision, so Moses is inserting Yahweh's name there. But he said, Blessed be El Shaddai of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And so that's why when Yahweh told Rebekah, the elder shall serve the younger before any child had been born, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. Because they came forth from Shem. Shem was the father of the Jews. Then it had to be that way. And Yahweh said that it was two nations in her warring. So even though they both came from Israel, not Israel, came from Isaac, Jacob was the Hebrew nation, and Esau was of a different nation. So when you had the elder serving the younger, and everything that come forth, Yahweh had to work with him and things like that, he was the one that Yahweh chose, that he said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called. He was talking about through the lineage of Israel that the Messiah would be born. And so blessed be the El Shaddai of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. So when it was time to take the land of Canaan, There had to be the servants of Shem because that's how Yahweh had it set. Same thing with Jacob and Esau. It looked like Esau was supposed to have the birthright and have the blessing, but Yahweh said the elder should serve the younger. So Yahweh's already saying before anybody even come on the scene and have Canaan land, which they call it Canaan's land, so you would think it would be his land. It was not his. He should be the servant of Shem, so said Yahweh. And Elohim shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tent of Shem. Yahweh will persuade Japheth to dwell in the same tent with Shem. And Canaan shall be his servant. So Noah is saying, blessed be El Shaddai of Shem. He didn't say El Shaddai of Japheth. It was already concluded that Yahweh would deal with the Jews and the Jews only initially, and it was the Jews that were supposed to turn around and give it to the Gentiles, so the Gentiles can serve Yahweh too, and Jacob will be persuaded, or the Gentile will be persuaded to dwell with the Jews. And that's what Yahweh is saying right here in this 9th chapter. So Elohim will persuade Japheth to dwell in the same tent with Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. All right, 10th chapter. This is the last chapter. Anybody have any comments about the 9th one before we go through the 10th and get through? We got 13 minutes. Okay. 10th chapter, last chapter. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshech, and Tiras. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah, and the sons of Javan, Elisha, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. Okay? By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Now they all three came from the same mama and daddy, but Yahweh is dividing the nations here. Japheth, that's where the Gentiles came from, with their own tongue, with their own language, their own family, their own nation. Okay? Now the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Saptah, and Ramah, and Septeka. And the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth, or a mighty hunter. He was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahweh. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Babel means confusion. And Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Ashur, and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth, and Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah. The same is a great city. That's where Jonah had to go to preach to Nineveh. All those evil nations came forth from him. And Mizraim begot Ludim, and Anamim, and Lehabim, and Naphtuhim, and Pathruzim, and Casluhim, out of whom came the Philistines. You got the Philistines too coming from him, and Caphton, and Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth. Remember the sons of Heth, what they did to Dinah? And Heth, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites, and the Girgashites, and the Hivite, and the Arkite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite, and afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar, which is the land of the Philistines. You had Abimelech of Gerar, so you had the Philistines there. And Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah, and Admah, and Zeboim, even unto Lasha. These are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. So all those nations that Yahweh had issues with, Sodom and Gomorrah, he destroyed them. Nineveh, he was going to destroy them. Gerar, you had the Philistines with Gerar. You had all of the lands of all of those Canaanites. All those came forth from Ham because Yahweh said, "Cursed be Canaan," or Noah said, "Cursed be Canaan." So all his children were cursed from that point forward. Unto Shem, also the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder. Japheth was the oldest. Even to him were children born. The children of Shem, Elam, and Asher, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram. And the children of Aram, Uz, and Hol, and Gether, and Mash. And Arphaxad begat Salah, and Salah begat Eber. And unto Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided. And his brother's name was Joktan. And Joktan begat Almodad, and Shelah, and Hazarmaveth, and Zerah, and Hadoram, and Uzal, and Diklah, and Obal, and Abimael, and Sheba, and Ophir, and Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. And their dwelling was from Mesha, as thou goest unto Sephar, a mount of the east. These are the sons of Shem after their families, after their tongues, and their lands, after their nations. These are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations and their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. And that's that for that. All right. Any questions or any comments or anything I want to share?
I have a comment. When we were in the 6th chapter, and it was talking about how that the sons of Elohim took daughters of men, and you see that same thing that Yahweh, the scripture lesson that we had read tonight was in Exodus, I don't forgot the chapter, but anyway, that was one of the things that he told Israel, that when you go over to these other nations, don't take their daughters and don't give them your daughters and sons, because they will draw you away and cause you to serve other gods and go a whoring. And that's a theme throughout the law and the prophets. Yahweh always told me in Deuteronomy, he told them the same thing. Don't take their wives and their daughters, and if you do, this is what's going to happen. And it's a theme throughout the whole the whole scriptures. He's telling them not to do that, and this is what's going to happen if you do. And you see it here in Genesis, where it first starts with the Canaanites, the sons of Cain and the sons of Seth mixing. And what happened? The 6th chapter is what happened. And then also there was another chapter where you were working with gosh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. You guys can go ahead. I'm sorry. I know that was one of the things that stood out for me.
Very good. Okay. Anybody else?
Just one thing, what I was sharing with you earlier about the how they found fossils of marine life on top of mountains. So that's just further confirmation and evidence left behind that the earth was indeed flooded, and not just that it was inundated water, but they actually found fossils of sea life, like large type of fishes. On top of mountains, fossilized in the mountains, 8,000, 10,000, 4,000 feet. So.
I remember the other thing was how that Yahweh, after the flood and Noah and his family are told they can come out the ark and everything, Yahweh tells them, he gives them the same commandment he gave Moses, to be fruitful and multiply. He gave them that same commandment, to be fruitful and multiply. And that's the same commandment that Yahweh has spoke out throughout his creation, to be fruitful and multiply. The seeds, they are abundant. When Yahweh created, what do? They reproduce. The seeds, the trees, your cells, your blood reproduces every 120 days. You get new blood cells. Okay, your skin, it sheds, it reproduces itself. Your hair, everything does that. Flowers, animals, you name it. It reproduces. Yahweh gave that commandment, and it went throughout the entire creation.
Yep, that's true. Very, very true. That's another reason why they lived so long back then, because they had to be fruitful, and why it was okay in that age and dispensation to actually, marry your sister and things like that, because they had to be fruitful and multiply. They had to multiply and populate the earth. But now, after that was done, after the population is done, then no, you can't go in onto your sister now. That's go to jail. But you can't have a whole bunch of wives and have a whole bunch of children by a whole bunch. That's not valid now in this age, because it's already been done now. They're already multiplied now. But who's this? All right. Any other questions or comments?
I just like how when we was talking about the ark, how Yahweh didn't have to force the animals to come in. You can just see that spirit law operating within the animals to come into that, and you see that even now still to this day. Like when you see some of, like, I look at like the fishes with salmon and stuff, and the birds and stuff, like that spirit law just telling them where to go. And so you can just that there was enough force of them when he said both male and female. You can just see how Yahweh put that spirit within the whole creation. They just came to the ark. Even some animals now, you just see that spirit law operating. Like you don't have to tell a bird when it's time to build a nest, or find the sticks, and those two come together. I see it every year because I have birds come to my doorstep like every year, and I see them operating and do the same thing like every single year. Just that spirit law. I just love that. It's beautiful.
Quick comment. Quick comment. In regards to brother and sister, back then, in the beginning of the creation, I don't know what term you could use to say, but I would say it like this: they were super intelligent. And if if you can see the effects of inbreeding today and the results of it, you know it's wrong. And but the point I'm trying to make is that back at that time, they were super intelligent, and incest at that time, not now, could take the hit, if you could understand what I'm saying. But that's just it. They were super intelligent back then, and something like that was all right for that time. That's it.
Yeah. Just like they were, like Abraham and all them, like Gideon and all them were able to go into their, not midwives, what is it, the concubines, and they had the wives and the concubines and things like that, because they had to be fruitful. Gideon had a whole bunch of wives and children. Abraham, was able to go into Hagar, and then he went on, had the Keturah after he had, after Sarah died and things like that, because they had to be fruitful and multiply. Same thing with Judah, with his son that died, that what was her name? Tamar. Tamar, her husband, she was married to Judah's son, and her son, Yahweh wasn't pleased with him, and so Yahweh killed him. And so Judah told her, if she saved herself, once his younger son got old enough, then he would give her to his older son to reserve seed for her husband. And so when his child got older, he didn't do that. And so Tamar, she, dressed up as a whore and went, and she slept with Judah. Judah thought he was sleeping with the whore, but it was really her. She played the harlot. And she took his signet bracelet and ring and all that, and his staff or whatever, because he was supposed to pay her for having sex, but he didn't have a lamb with him. He didn't have a lamb in his back pocket. So he said he would bring a lamb back later to pay her for having sex with him, because he thought she was a whore. And so when he sent his friend with the lamb to pay her, she wasn't there anymore. And he was like, and everybody's like, there wasn't no whore in this place. What you talking about? And so he was like, what in the world? Well, who? I guess I must have got it for free then and get my lamb back. Then found out Tamar was pregnant, and they were getting ready to kill her because they thought that she had played, like she had slept with somebody else and she wasn't supposed to because she was supposed to be saving herself. She asked him, well, whoever man that these belong to, this signet, this staff, and these bracelets and all that, that's who I played the whore with. And when he realized it was his stuff, he was like, well, God dog, she was more righteous than I was because I was supposed to give her my youngest son. And I ended up, I didn't do it. And she still preserved seed with my lineage through me to my son, but, so forth and so on. But anyway, and out of that copulation, that's where Boaz and all of them came from. And so, of course, we know the story about Boaz and Ruth. That's where Jesse came from, the lineage of Boaz and Ruth. And from Jesse came David, and from David, the Messiah came. So if Tamar would not have done that and preserved seed through Judah, then the Messiah wouldn't have come through that lineage. And so all those things happened. But anyway, don't get me started. But anyway, all right. So I'm going to give y'all the assignment for next time we meet. So now, don't forget, now we do have the private lessons class next Monday. Now, that class, we do record it, but we don't post it on social media. That class is a little different. So this is a research class, based class or whatever. And the lessons for that, if you guys want to join us next Monday for that class, I'll put it on the board real quick. But we'll always have definitions, research, and a reading assignment for that particular class. And that's every other week too. And it's only an hour long so far right now. And so we have the definitions, we got name, title, article, adjective, God, Lord, translate, transliterate, veil, and euphemism. And then for the research, we have to research the letter J. We have to research who was Zeus, where did IES or US come from, what does the prefix JE mean, and where did the term amen come from, and what does it mean? And then the reading assignment, we have to read the preface of the Holy Name Bible and Exodus, the 3rd chapter, and we're going to bring all that together and discuss it next Monday. So if you want to join us for that, just shoot me a text message or email me, and I can send you the link to that because it's a different link, but it does start at the same time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time next Monday. But for the Basics and Foundation class, it'll be every other Monday. And so for that, the assignment is reading Genesis 11th chapter through the 20th chapter, so 11 through 20, the next 10 chapters, 11 through 20, and be prepared to answer questions from a pop quiz, and then we'll discuss each chapter like we did tonight. Because what we're doing right now is going through the 3rd trip that Moses took into the mountain, and so this is what he saw in the 3rd trip. And so we're going through all of that. Once we get to this, we'll go back and pick up the 35th chapter of Exodus and continue after that to kind of read everything in order. Any questions or comments? All right. This is the email address to email us at if you want the link. You go to meridiansohl@gmail.com, meridiansohl@gmail.com, or idmrmeridianms@gmail.com. You can send me an email. I'll send you the Zoom link to join us in any class that we have. We do have class every Sunday and every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on Sunday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Wednesday, and that's Central Time. We do stream live for those two classes. That Zoom link is the same for those classes. Basics and Foundation classes every other Monday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time. And we do have the new class that we started up on the Mondays that are not the Basics and Foundation class called Private Lessons. All right, if nothing else, we'll conclude the doxology, taking some of the last two verses of the book of Jude. Does anybody want to do that for me?
I'll do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, now unto him that is able to keep you from falling and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy. To the only wise Elohim, our Savior, through Yahshua the Messiah, our Sovereign, belong glory and majesty, dominion and power, both now and forever. Let us all say hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Thank you guys for your participation. I enjoyed you guys tonight.
I
Great
enjoyed
time.
it. Y'all have a good night.
Good
Y'all
night.
too.
All right.
Good night, everyone.